You may talk about the knowledge which our farmers girls have gained from cooking schools and cookbooks where all modern cooks are trained, but I would rather know just how, though vainly I have tried to prepare like Mother used to. Sauce and chicken fried. Our farmers' girls know how to fix their dainty dishes rare. But friend, just let me tell you what, nothing can compare to what my mother used to fix, and for which I've often cried when I was but a little tot. Apple sauce and chicken fried. Chicken a la Francaise and also fricassee, served with some newfangled sauce, is plenty good for me. Till I get to thinking about that home where once I used to bide and where I used to eat on my apple sauce and chicken fried. We always had it once a week. Sometimes we had it twice. And I have even known the time when we have had it thrice. Our good yet jolly pastor on his weekly circuit rides with us once each week gave grateful thanks for apple sauce and chicken fried. It seems like I can smell it and even taste it too. And see it with my natural eye, though of course it can't be true. And suddenly I'm standing at my mother's side, pulling on her skirt and asking for apple sauce and chicken fried. That point transports me back in time. Oof. I'm immediately in the kitchen of the home where I grew up at my mother's side, surrounded by the wondrous sense of her cooking, wrapped in her love and the love of my family. It reminds me of the great good blessing of having been born and raised on a short stretch from here in Upper Chloe Creek. To those of you who I may not have had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name is Effie Waller Smith. My family gave name to the beautiful strip of land upon which our farm lays, Waller Holler. My mother, Sibby Ratliff, and my father, Frank Waller, were both freed, enslaved persons. They took the surnames of the families who, in the sorry vernacular of the time, owned them. My mother and grandmother were purchased by General Ratliff of Pikeville. He was a Confederate, like most people in Kentucky at the time, but he felt for the plight of enslaved black people and tried to keep as much of my mother's family together as he could afford. My father was freed from his servitude at Cedar Point Plantation in Virginia, owned by the Waller family, at which point he made his way to Kentucky, where he and my mother met, fell in love, and married in 1870. My father learned the trades of wharf master and blacksmith and earned income as both upon his arrival in Pikeville. Though East Kentucky, after the War of the States, was not exactly what it is today, the town had changed enough to see a free man as just that, a man who deserved to pay for the sweat of his brow just like any other man. A frugal and industrious man. My daddy saved enough money to buy not only 100 acres, 2 cows, and seed which began our family's farm, but 5 more parcels of land beyond the county and 2 more beyond its borders. Unlike many places during the reconciliation of our nation, Upper Chloe Creek was a remarkable place where black and white citizens lived as neighbors, and like all who lived among the mountains at that time, the food on our table came from the soil at our feet and the sweat on our brow. My brother Alfred came along in 1870, followed a year later by Rosa, and I was born January 6, 1879. Our home was one of love, honest labor, and above all, learning. We 3 each attended the District A colored school in Pikeville. That was 4 miles from our door, and that was a long walk through these mountains. That's where I fell in love with them. And they became a whole other school for me. I love my native mountains. Dear old Cumberlands, rock-ribbed and everlasting. How great they are and grand. I love each skyward reaching peak, each glassy glade and dale, each moss and fern-clad precipice, each lovely flower-decked vale. I love each vine-hung rocky glen. I love each dark ravine, though there may hide the catamount and the wild dog, sly and mean. I love my mountains forests, so varied and wonderful. I love each spring and waterfall, so pure and wonderful. I love her richly plumaged birds, the pheasant and the jay, the merry scarlet tanager, the woodpeck, bright and gay. How often amongst these mountains has a silvery music clear from the lark's throat cheered the traveler or the honest mountaineer. But more in these old mountains, with which wonder I revere, with true love and devotion do I have for the people who live here. So here is with love sincere and dear, her sons of Braun and Worth, and her daughters here in Lovely, the fairest tops on earth. When I finished my common schooling, I followed my sister Rosa to the Kentucky Normal School for Colored Persons in Frankfort, which later became known as Kentucky State University. Frankfort was a far cry from my homestead in the mountains. Suddenly, my knowledge of tree and flower and creek didn't serve me in such good stead. But I had many an impressive role model in the young women I met, living their lives and carving a path for themselves. I was so inspired. I just had to write about these bachelor girls. And she's no old maid, and she's not afraid to let you know she's her own boss. She's easy pleased. She's not diseased. It's not nervous. It's not cross. She's no desire whatever for Mrs. to precede her name. The blessedness of singleness she all her life will proudly claim. She does not sit around and knit on baby caps and mittens. She does not play her time away with puggy dogs and kittens. Oh, and if a mouse, about the house, she sees, she will not scream. Of handsome beau and billet doe, the bachelor girl does never dream. She reads history, biography, tales of adventure far and near on sea and land, but love stories and poetry rarely interest her. She's lots of wit and uses it. A horse sense too, she has a store. The latest news she always knows. She reads daily papers over of politics and all the tricks and schemes politicians use. She knows full well, and she can tell with them of eloquence her views. An athlete that's hard to beat, the bachelor girl surely is. She makes good aims when playing games and always strictly minds her biz. Amid the hurry and the flurry of this life, she goes alone. If you should see her out, she seldom has a chaperone. But if you catch her out at night, she has a 32, and she can shoot, you bet your boots. With necessity demands her to. But she is kind, and you will find her always spreading sunshine bright amongst the poor, and she is sure to always advocate for the right on her mater and her pater. For support she does not lean. She talks and writes of women's rights and language forceful and clean. She does not shirk. She does her work amid life's fast, rustling world. So come what may, she's here to stay. A self-supporting bachelor girl. When I graduated from college, I returned to my Cumberlands. In fact, I returned to District A colored school, but this time as a teacher. And when the weather would cooperate, I'd bring my students out into my Appalachian mountains of nature to be their teacher too. Thus began, my first foray into the breaks! That glorious bounty of river and valley cut right into the living mountains of eastern Kentucky. Its majesty imprinted itself upon my soul, flowed forth my pen onto the pages of my journals. My family and friends were remarkably encouraging in my writing. In fact, some prominent citizens even saw fit to facilitate having them printed in the local newspaper. I don't mean to sound immodest, but they continued to gain public favor. I became friends with one such estimable citizen, a Miss Mary Elliott Flannery. She was so kind and generous, forward-thinking and more about the betterment of all people, whether they be black, white, man, or woman. She graciously took me under her wing, and with her help and her connections, I became the first black woman published to Harper's. Miss Elliott Flannery. And she soon got mine to begin collecting my works into a published volume titled Songs of the Month. She became not only my advocate, but my patron, taking it as her duty to raise not only the funds, including helping to finance the publication, but she personally wrote the introduction to my first volume. And now, writing a preface to a tome you helped publish seems a simple task and a decision of little consequence, but it took considerable bravery for a woman who, quote, imbued with Southern prejudice, whose own near relatives, the Elliots of East Kentucky, fought to keep the Negro in subjugation, unquote, to say, quote, time and development of the Negro race will surely appeal to the reasons of anti-abolitionists and cause them to reflect that perhaps after all they may have been in error, unquote. Her words then turned to praise of my work, which I do blush to repeat, but, quote, Miss Waller's verse is possessed of much pathos and beauty, having an originality all their own. Who knows that, like Paul Laurence Dunbar, she may not one day surprise and delight her own race and cause white critics to marvel at her genius. In Miss Waller's verse is that simply beautiful lyrical quality which, like Keats and Burns, charms and wins all hearts, unquote. I'd go on to publish 2 more volumes of poetry, Songs of Cumberlands and Rosemary and Pansies. I'd go on to marry 2 men, one of whom I shouldn't have looked at twice, the second of which was my childhood love, taken too soon. I'd go on to teach in several more schools, some as close as Kentucky and some as far as Tennessee, but I returned to my Cumberlands to drink one last draught of the rivers and valleys. Shortly after the publication of my 3rd volume, life took me west, to Wisconsin, where I'd raised a child left in my care by an old friend. I had a whole other life there, but no more poetry. I'd leave that in the big sandy of my home. The sun-bathed hills were beautiful. The day was fresh and fair. The wind was blowing nice and cool. The atmosphere was rare and merry and light-hearted in a jackboat painted red, seeking some far-off woodland place we up the sandy sped. Far up the rippling winding stream, we found a pleasant spot. 'Twas beautiful in the extreme, hid from the sunbeams hot. The branches of sycamore, branches spreading wide, and a lovely archway over the river on both sides. We pushed our boat toward the shore, and gently tied her to a hanging branch of sycamore, which near the water grew. Along the shady, sandy bank, among the willows tall and rank, we left our deep footprints. On a large rock, smooth and bare, we sat a while and ate a most delicious dinner there, which will not soon forget. When shadows of the evening showed upon the mountain green, our painted boat we lightly rowed down the rippling stream. With happy minds we homeward went, thinking we'd not soon forget the pleasant day that we had spent on the dear old sandy river.